Today I am talking to Mitchell. He's the owner operator of Baker Pool Maintenance in Mesa, Arizona. Mitchell, welcome.
Great to be here.
I'd be curious to start out. What is the high level state of your business right now? How many pools do you have? Are you single pooler? Do you have techs employed?
Yeah, all great questions. So I have one full-time tech. He's part-time but full-time. So right now we're right.
Pool People is brought to you by and powered by Pool Dial. Pool Dial is an AI powered pool service software. You can run your whole pool business through text with our AI assistant. And this software also provides typical things like routing, customer management, and billing, and integrates with Stripe and QuickBooks, and is generally flexible to how you run your business. I've heard people talk about their conversions to pool service software, help them grow for large businesses over 300,000 additional revenue in a year. And I've just heard that pool service software can be transformative to your business. If you're still on pen and paper or using Excel spreadsheets, I heavily encourage you to check out pool service software. And if you're using another piece of software, I encourage you to check our product out. We've launched more recently than other software tools. So while others might have been around longer and be more trustworthy for that, a lot of our features are newer and maybe more intuitive than other products on the market. Thank you for listening so far. Please continue to enjoy Pool People and check us out, Pool Dial at pooldial.com.
Around 101, 102 accounts. And then my tech that I have on board takes care about 65 to 70 pools a week for me. And then I do the rest, and then I do all the repairs, drains, and washes and everything else.
Okay, cool. What's the high level catalog of services you provide?
So we do a lot. So weekly maintenance, filter cleans, repairs, new equipment installs, drains, chlorine washes, acid washes. I can also help out with like tile clean as well as like if a gas heater needs to be put in, we can get some gas line plumbed in. That's something I outsource though. Pretty much the only thing I don't do is completely resurfacing of pools. I do have colleagues that I refer that to, but I don't do resurfacing or building new pools yet.
Okay, cool, cool. And how long have you been in the industry?
Let's see, about 4.5 years now.
4.5 years. And we had talked briefly before about your background and being in sales. I'm curious, what were you doing before this, and how did you get started in pool service?
Yeah, so originally I ran a farmers insurance agency of my own up in Washington State for 10 years. We moved down here about 5 years ago, and my plan was to get right back into insurance. And I just ran into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And the house that I bought down here had a pool, and I just hired the pool guy that was servicing it with the previous owner. And every week he'd come out and I'd just kind of talk with him a little bit, see how he's doing. And, I was, for the most part, unemployed at the time. And he looked at me one day and we were just chatting and he said, "Hey, you know of anybody that wants to be in the pool business? I'm busier than snot." And I half jokingly said, "Yeah, me." And he looked at me and he's like, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, why not?" Because before I got into insurance, I did construction for many years. So I'm used to working with my hands. And so he's like, "Well, you come to work with me for a little bit. I'll teach you what I know and we'll get you going." And here we are.
Okay, great. Did you have a truck? Did you need to get one? Did he have one for you?
No, so our agreement was that I rode along with him on his
Okay.
service routes for about 3 months. And the deal was basically he didn't pay me, that he was saying, "Hey, I'll teach you everything I know in lieu of that." And then he gave me a discounted rate of 15 pools off of his route that I bought off of him once I was done. But yeah, I went out and bought a used like 2002 Ford pickup just to get started.
Okay. Okay. How much did you feel like you learned in those 3 months? Was it enough to like get you cracking and feel confident, or was it still a big learning curve after you struck it out on your
It's
own?
still a big learning curve. So I would say he taught me the basics and to get me going. And then what was great about the relationship that I had at the time and still have to this day is that he said, "Hey, if you have questions, you need anything, if you're on a job, you give me a call, I'll walk you through it." So even though I was able to kind of walk at my own at that point, I was still stumbling here, giving him a call for like probably the next almost year after that of just like, hey, I'm running into this issue. What's this? Hey, I'm running into this issue. What's this? What do I do? So, I mean, I could do it, but it's definitely was still a huge learning curve. And so I am, like I said, about 4.5 years into it now, and I just now feel like I got a really good handle on things.
Okay. What have been the big learning curves for you? Was it chemistry? Was it doing repairs?
Uh, all the above.
Okay.
So, chemistry is a big one because almost every pool is different. Every pool is different. And so I could even if they're in the same neighborhood, I could go in, take care of one pool that always held chlorine, always looked beautiful, go four houses down, and the pH was always off or the it never held chlorine and so every pool was always different. So learning how to balance those chemicals, and then when the weather changes too. So, I was learning in summer, which summer's the hardest part. So I kind of fortunate that I would say I learned during summer. Winter's a lot easier, but yeah, it's definitely a decent learning curve of, hey, how much chemicals do I need to put in this time versus next time, balancing them out, and really getting to know the pool and really understanding that each pool has its own uniqueness that before would probably take me a couple of months to figure out, but now I can just, pretty much just get it dialed in right away.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. And so you got started with the guy who was cleaning your pool.
Uh-huh.
You rode along with him for 3 months, and you started your
Yep.
own business. And you
Yep.
bought 15 pools from
Yep.
him. Am I getting that
Yep.
correct? How
That's
did you go
correct.
from growing from there on out?
Um, Again, man, looking back, he helped me out tremendously. So, he it was a fortunate position for both of us because he was the type of guy, he never wanted to hire anybody. He didn't want to deal with that side of the business. He wanted everything just to be him and keep it simplistic that way. And so he was already at a max amount of pools of what he could get at, and he had a pretty good Google listing and he'd get plenty of calls. So what we worked out was is anybody that called in for service, he would send over to me, and then anybody that signed up with me, I'd send him $100 in a referral. So he ended up sending me about, I would say, 30 accounts within my first year.
Okay. Well, well. And what was your workflow? So you bought the first 15 customers.
Uh-huh.
Those customers, I imagine you just continued service.
Yep.
Uh, how about the new customers? What was it like when you were approaching the first customers that were new to your route and this sort of thing?
I was very nervous. I would say I came in cheaper than I'd say other companies out there just because I needed to get the business, I needed to get the clients. And looking back to what I am now versus then, I was definitely nervous and, oh, okay, yeah, let's, hey, I can take care of your pool. And, if they had questions, some of the questions I really didn't know, I'd be like, hey, I got to find that out. And I mean, I just came from the basis of always just trying to do my best by people, but definitely nervous and not as confident as I am now.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. And so it sounds like you were getting referrals from your your buddy's Google business profile. Did you
Yep.
have any other sort of marketing things you figured out along the way? Your own Google business profile, or have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I built my insurance agency is
Okay.
I was in my town slash area. I was one of the most highly Google rated insurance, if not the most, in that small area. I wasn't in a very big town, but that generated a ton of leads for me. And I just built my Google listing from there and just really worked hard on getting Google reviews. And that helped tremendously as well.
How did you go about building it?
Uh, I learned from an old mentor. basically you got to wait for an attaboy. And what that means is when you do a good job by a customer, if somebody comes out and is like, wow, the pool looks great. Wow, you just so often I would that's another thing too, is I would pick up my phone. The guy who was training me said, hey, as long as you pick up your phone, you're going to beat most of the pool guys out there. And I'm like, I don't believe you. I didn't believe it at first. And sure enough, the majority of my calls, they'd be like, wow, you're the first pool guy that picked up today. Wow, you're the first one or the only one that's picked up. And I was like, wow, that is true. So, and then I just do the best I can by the customer. And they're like, man, I'm so glad I called. I'm so glad I found you. My pool looks great. Then I'd be like, hey, and I would always ask it as a question because I think people like to help other people. And I said, hey, would you be so kind to help me grow my business and be willing to leave me a Google review? It would help me out tremendously. And 9 times out of 10, people would say, yeah, absolutely. And I'd send them the link and get a Google review.
Okay, wow. And is there anything someone who hasn't asked for reviews before, any piece of advice you would give them?
Um, Wait for that attaboy. Wait for that attaboy of when a customer, says, hey, they're happy, you did great work. And then I make it simple. So I have a link to my Google page that I can send via text, and I just send them the text. And normally I'd say within a couple of days, they'll leave a review, and I just follow up with a thank you saying thanks for taking the time to do that.
It is that process of asking for reviews when people give you that attaboy and building up your Google business profile led to where you are now with the amount of pools you have?
100%.
Okay.
100%. I get so many calls. And not only that, it kind of, I think, implants the customer relationship a little bit better too, because since I've been in business, I've never had business cards. And that's probably something I really need to do and start sending customers business cards because so with leaving that Google review, they typically will, hey, put me in their phone as the pool guy, or they'll remember me. So I definitely have people that, I took care of 2 years ago, and they're calling me back saying, hey, you took care of me 2 years ago and you were great. And I have this repair coming in now. So just kind of strengthening that customer business relationship.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And in terms of your business and um, how it allows you to work full time and have a tech, are the services you provide, the weekly stuff you provide, the most profitable? Is it the repairs that are most profitable for you? Um,
Yeah.
the
Repairs
repairs,
and washes.
the repairs and washes.
Yep. Repairs. Well, no, so I would say it depends on the wash. But yeah, it's a toss up between a wash and then new install of new equipment.
Okay. Could you tell the story of maybe your first or memorable new install?
Uh, First, let's see. I know my first repair, I did an aerator valve repair that this was like the first plumbing I was ever doing on my own. And now, if you ask me now, I could go out there and probably in 15 minutes just boop, 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 no problem, get it painted, look professional, and just be done. But I think it took me an hour and a half or 2 hours because I was so nervous. I was like, oh, does it go this way? Does it go this way? But just learning now all the tips, tricks, and how the plumbing works and how everything flows in, it's just so much easier now. And then I would say with anything, if especially if somebody is new in the business or trying to learn that aspect of the business, that have somebody out there that knows what they're doing the first couple of times. So that's the guy who trained me when I sold the very first piece of equipment I sold was a filter. The guy's sand filter was just old and terrible. And I basically gave it to him just a little bit above like my cost. I wanted to make a little bit of money, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I had my guy come out and he was there with me and we basically did it together. And I think he helped me out with one or two more installs from there until I got really the hang of it.
Okay. Okay. And how about your first acid wash?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Acid washes can be temperamental and depending on the finish and stuff that you have. I wouldn't recommend somebody that's never done an acid wash to go out and try to do an acid wash on their own. Um, and especially and you have to, there's certain ways you got to communicate that verbiage to customers as well, because a lot of customers get apprehensive of doing an acid wash because they worry it's going to wreck their pool. And if you do it wrong, it can. But same thing, I went out with the guy who taught me. I just went out with his acid washes. I just said, hey, just let me know when you're getting an acid wash. I'd love to come join. And he said, sure. So three or four, I think on the third one, he basically, I went there, I watched him for the first couple of times, and then the third time I went and did it while he was watching me and he could critique me. And then I was good to go from there. But then the first one, it was kind of a bummer. The very first one I did was a pebble sheen, which requires very little acid. And I probably used a little bit too much. Pool still came out fine and it looks good. But yeah, that was my first one, was very nerve-wracking on my own.
And how does an acid wash work?
There's different ways people do it. Basically, some people get a like an
Pool Brief is a twice weekly news source for the pool industry. It collects news from all the popular pool podcasts, like the Pool Food Podcast or the Pool Magazine podcast, as well as trade industry publications like Pool Magazine, Aqua Magazine, or the Pool Service Industry. It's a great way to stay up with the news in the industry, whether it's motor regulations or just generally understand the broader industry landscape. You can check it out at poolbrief.com.
acid, like a weed sprayer almost, where you pump up the tank and it comes pressurized and they go around and spray the walls. But for me, what I do is I get all the walls wet, because if they're dry, the acid can streak on the walls and create this weird darkening color. So I get all the walls wet. I do a pre-wash of the pool, get all the dirt out, and then I get a like a 2 gallon canteen, like a flower watering pot, and do about. I start off with about a third of a gallon of acid, fill the rest with water, and then I start going in and coating the walls around the pool. And depending on how much, like either calcium, how old the pebble tech, there's a lot of variables that come up. Sometimes when you go to do an acid wash, you get a lot of bubbling soon as it touches the pebble tech. It just bubbles, 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 and it starts to strip a little thin layer off the pebble tech and strip some of the color off of the pebble tech as well. So you go around the pool, you got to do a whole even coat. You do it in sections and you got to be very methodical. So I'll go through a whole 2 gallon container, which will typically cover about a quarter of the pool. Then you go back and you wash down that section. And then you got to remember where you left off, because if you start a little bit before or a little bit after where you left off, the colors won't match up quite right, because it does when you do an acid wash mainly on a newer pool. It does really deepen the color of where the acid hits, and not so much on older pebble tech. Older pebble tech doesn't really seem to change or do much at all.
And what's the point of an acid wash?
Acid wash helps alleviate stains in the pool. Helps eliminate calcium that's built up on the finish. And one of the main chemicals when we're balancing the water is CYA, or cyanic acid. It's a stabilizer for chlorine. And when CYA gets too high in the pool, it can make chlorine less effective. So that CYA will leach into the pebble tech. And so if you don't do an acid wash every so now and then, that when you go to refill your pool 3, 4 months down the road, all that CYA comes back out of the pebble tech, and then you have high CYA again. So it basically helps reduce all the minerals and chemicals that are in the pebble tech, gives it a better, typically a better looking finish, and it can make it look really nice and clean too. So there's a lot of benefits to an acid wash.
Okay, and then do you need to drain it beforehand? Or does
Yes.
the owner do
There
that? Or
are,
yeah.
well, no, so there are, I think this is more of an East Coast thing. Like my brother-in-law is a pool guy in Florida, and they typically never drain their pools over there. Typically because the water level is so high, they're worried about the pool popping out of the ground.
Interesting.
We don't really have to worry about that here. So I know that there is acid treatments where they come in and they really lower the pH of the pool and make the water very acidic and do it that way. I've
Mhm.
never seen of it being done here, but I think in the 4.5 years I've been in the business, I've heard about it once online. But so yeah, I've been taught, and the way I do it is you drain the pool and have it empty.
What do you mean the water popping out of, or the pool popping out of the I don't remember specifically how you said it, but what happens in Florida with the
So
high
when
water
your
line?
water table is high,
Yeah,
it can, if you got to think, so when a pool is full of water, water is heavy and it's holding that shell down. So
sure,
a pool is basically a concrete shell.
sure.
And so if you had a hollowed out piece of wood or like a bowl, for instance, and you try pushing it down the water, the water is going to push it back up. So their water table is higher than ours. So it can, with that release of all that weight in the pool can actually start popping. Not much. It's not going to like jump out of the ground, but all the edges and everything can start to
Okay,
raise
wow.
up.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so zooming out of acid washes and this sort of stuff, um, one simple question they have is, do you do monthly billing or do you do monthly plus chems?
I do monthly billing. So a lot of guys out there will do a base rate plus the chems. I don't like that. I think it's more complicated for the customer. I've gotten so many customers over to me that have said, I'm just tired of, I don't know what my bill is going to be monthly. Sometimes it's 140, sometimes it's $200, just depending on what the chems they put in. So, and it's on our side as a pool guy, it can be a lot more of a hassle on the billing side as well to try and figure out, okay, what each customer used and everything like that. So, no, for me, simplicity is the game. I like just a flat fee year round.
Okay, and how do you think about your pricing generally?
I don't think I'm the cheapest. I don't think I'm the most expensive. I would say I'm probably a touch higher than average.
Have you ever done like a large price raise?
What would you mean large?
I know some people, maybe not a large in terms of the price amount, but taking all your customers and raising their prices.
Yeah, so when I was first starting out, like my prices were low. And so, yeah, and then as new people kept coming on board, it was easier to start people off at a new point versus just raising the old or the existing customers. But yeah, I would say there was times where I had 10 or 15 some accounts where I just like, hey, your rate's going up 10 or $15 a month.
Could you maybe walk through one of those stories? I've seen like posts of people thinking about raising their prices for the first time. They're kind of worried about it. They're worried they'll lose customers, have customers be upset at them. Uh, could you maybe tell a story of one of your price raises and how it went? Did you lose customers? Was it fine? It maybe would provide reassurance to someone just thinking about going through it.
Yeah, I think the important thing is, and I've gotten these calls too, is when you
Hmm.
go to do a price change, that you got to do it at a smaller amount. So I did mine somewhere between 10 and $15.
Hmm.
And some customers I did it back to back, 10 or $15 this time, and then a year went down the road and then another 10 or $15. Uh, I would say for the most part, every single one of my customers understood because I basically said, hey, the cost of doing business, it's going up. And which it was, chemicals and everything at the time were going up. And people I mean, I don't think 10 or $15, at least for me, was a big hit to anybody. Everybody completely understood. I mean, I think I had a few that were just like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. The guy had, before you raised rates. But if I think I might have had one person cancel on me at that point. They're like, hey, we're going to shop around. But I think when at those prices I was at, I was below average. And so they didn't really find anybody. I would say most customers, if you're a good pool guy, they don't want to lose a good pool guy over 10 or $15. That's not worth the typical savings and the customer that wants to shop or leave you over 10 or $15 a month, is typically the customer that doesn't approve any repairs, doesn't approve any drains or anything like that. They're just so money tight they can't. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do anything for you anyway, so you should go. But I've had people call in and tell me, hey, my company just raised my rate like 40 or $50 a month because they're doing XYZ or anything like that. And I've seen people upset and calling me when it's that type of a rate increase. And so I just, I try and think of um, where they are at in my route as well, because timing is really important. It's so much easier to hit, let's say, four pools at a little bit of a lower cost that are, 5 minutes from my house, that these four pools are all next to one another, than have, two pools 20 minutes away from my house that are, $50 more a month, because those two pools are going to take just as long, if not longer, to hit and service than the four pools that are by my house. So I think when you're talking about rates, you need to think about where they're located as in relationship to that as well.
Okay, and tactically, in terms of how you do it, did you send out an email to the 10 to 20 customers when you saw them next? Did you talk to them? Did you text
I gave
them?
them a phone call.
You gave them a phone call. Okay, yeah.
Yep. And I was just on it saying, hey, gotta let you know. And I gave them notice. I said, hey, I'd call them, let's say, in March and say, hey, I'm giving you a couple months notice, and starting May 1st, rates are going up 10 or 15 bucks a month. The cost of business is going up. It's just something that I got to do. It's not, I'm trying to keep the raise that I'm raising rates manageable for people and give you plenty of notice. And, I appreciate your business and just want to make sure you were well informed. And it's that conversation, everybody always understood that.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, I'm curious for maybe a story or two. Do you have any stories? I'm not sure things you run into on your route. Maybe issues with like a gate code or dogs in the backyard or any interesting stories?
Um, Not necessarily. I don't think I have. You always, I'm a dog lover. I love dogs,
Yeah.
but it is interesting where almost 90%, if not more, people will say, "Oh, my dog's super friendly. They'd never bite anybody." But yeah, once the homeowner's not there, it's the dogs are different around people that they don't really know, and they don't like the pole or the stick or the sun hats that we wear. Um, the I had one, I still have this customer, but their dog died. It was a very interesting dog. So the homeowner would always come out, greet me, a lovely lady. I always had good conversation with her. Her dog would come out, always be super friendly. And this was actually one of the accounts that I bought off the guy who trained me. And he told me one day, he's like, you need to keep an eye on this gal's dog. Like, you just trust me. And I was like, oh, okay. I've always seen the dog friendly, and it was like 2 years of servicing this gal's pool. The dog is just always super friendly to me. And this one time I'm there, she comes out, dogs come out, everybody's friendly. She says, oh, I need to go in and grab something. This is the first time she left me alone with the dog. As soon as she went in, the door shut. That dog, it was almost like a cartoon. That dog turned to me and just like gave me a look like, don't you effing move, and gave me a low growl the
Hmm.
moment the door was shut. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This dog went from playful to like, I'm going to bite you if you move. And it really shocked me. And at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, that guy did, kind of warn me about that. Um, then I would say, in my experience, and this was with insurance as well, when you go and you get a new customer, if that customer, I'm always, people have bad experiences with other pool companies, and I get people, oh my gosh, blah 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 blah. A little bit of complaining is okay and it's natural, but I've always found out that people that are constantly complaining or constantly like trying to right off the get-go, they're hesitant. Like if you go out there and do a repair or an inspection, say, hey, you got a couple things, they're like, we'll wait. People that are constant complainers are typically always complainers. Pools that you have a problem with, typically you will always have a problem with. It's weird. It doesn't really change. And the people that are cheap, are typically always cheap. And it's weird. It's even a clean pool with a cheap customer can cost you more money than a dirty pool that's not with a cheap customer because cheap people typically, and I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but they don't want to, they either don't have the money, which that's people that don't have the money and people that are cheap are different. People that are cheap, they just don't want to fix anything. They don't. They're like, and they kind of tend to blame the pool guy too. So, looking back from then to now, I mean, I took on accounts now that there's no way I would take. I'm a little bit picky with my new oncoming customers, and if I don't get a good vibe or if something doesn't seem quite right with either the customer or their pool, I don't take it.
So is it vibes based? It sounds like complaining is a big thing. Are there any, do you take above ground pools? Are there other any things you
Uh,
take into mind when you're considering taking
so
on a new
I
customer?
used to take an above ground pool. I regretted it. They're a completely different animal. And come to find out, my insurance doesn't cover above ground pools. And my guess is probably a lot of pool guys don't know that. And once I found that out, I quit servicing and quit doing above ground pools, which I honestly I didn't want to do anyway. And speaking of insurance, one of the things that I found out that I don't think a lot of pool guys know is that if you're an experienced pool guy and you go to do like an installation so of new equipment, so by Arizona state law, you are supposed to be licensed, and it's not hard to get licensed, but you're supposed to be licensed to do install pool equipment. And so even though you have insurance, at least with my insurance carrier, I found out that they will not cover any claim that requires that license in order for you to perform said work. So that's another, I'd say, little gold nugget I have to share.
And what sort of insurance do you have for your business?
SPA, SPPA.
Hmm. Okay, okay. And then that's the only thing that you have, and you think that's pretty comprehensive for where you're at and this sort of thing.
They have a really good program.
Yeah.
They have it's general liability. They can have completed operations. So if if I do a job and it fails type thing and somebody gets hurt, there's a very few things that they don't cover, but they even cover chemical spills if a chemical dumps in the back of my truck or on the property, those types of things. So yeah, I like my insurance coverage.
Okay, cool, cool. And we met at a IPSA meetup. I'm curious what led you to start attending IPSA meetups and what do you get out of them?
They're great. So it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started getting burnout. So, but this was before I had a tech. I was doing like 25 pools a day, plus, repairs, washes, filter cleans. I was doing it all. And I was getting burnt out. And I ended up getting sick for about 2 weeks. I had a cold that wouldn't go. And on the second week, I basically had to call, a friend, somebody else in the business I knew well, and was like, "Hey, I need you to service my accounts this week, because I just can't do it." Because people, it's fine if you take off 1 week, but this was also in the summer, and you're not supposed to take any vacation in the summer. But especially 2 weeks in the summer, everybody's pool is going green. But what's cool is IPSA, part of their program is that if you get really sick or if you get injured, other people in the program will actually step up to help. It's called route coverage. And so that's how I originally found that out because I was like, man, what happens if I do get really injured? Like, what do I do? I don't have a backup. I don't have, an employee or anything like that. And I forget where I heard it from, but I did hear that, they did some type of route coverage and they do meetings. And so I get to learn more about our products. I get to, have a community of pool guys there. I just really enjoy it.
And so did you get someone to cover you when you were sick that time?
No, so they know I was sick before I joined
Okay,
IPSA.
gotcha.
And sure enough, and that's just how things work. As soon as I joined, I haven't really been sick since.
I see. Yeah, yeah. Cool, cool. Do you use I think you're on some sort of pool service software. Do you use like any other software too?
No,
Do you use
I
like a
use
business
Skimmer.
phone number? You use Skimmer, and then do you use Google Voice or anything for a business number? Do you use your personal number?
I
Um,
use my personal number.
okay, cool. And then Skimmer is just the only sort of software. I think your website looked like it was on GoDaddy or something. Did
Ah, yes. Correct.
Okay. Did
Which
you
I
set that
probably
up
need to
yourself?
update. I did.
Okay, cool, cool. Okay, interesting. And did you, when you first started in pools, was the buddy you were working with, was he on Skimmer and you started using it? Were you
No.
on pen and paper with
Oop.
him?
Pen and paper, and that's how he still runs to this day. Pen and
Really?
paper, and
Okay.
I ran on pen and paper probably for the first year and a half to 2 years, and then another colleague of mine was like, "Hey, you should try Skimmer." And I was already so used to pen and paper. I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, all right. Then my brother-in-law over in Florida, he didn't got Skimmer. He's on Pay the Pool Man. And he's like, dude, it makes a world of difference to have a program. I'm like, all right, I'll try Skimmer. And yeah, I really like it. It's made a huge help.
How long did it take to onboard?
Um, to sign up with them, I don't know, a
Yeah, and
phone
like add
call.
your customers and get the route set up. Was it just super easy? Like you don't
Well,
even.
at the time when I switched, I think I
Yeah.
only had like 70 accounts.
Okay.
So I just went through and entered in each one manually. So I guess an afternoon.
Okay, cool, cool. And how much of your interaction with Skimmer is with their mobile app versus their desktop?
90% in the mobile.
Okay, got you. Do you send invoices through Skimmer?
Yep.
And is that what you do on the desktop?
Yes.
Okay, got you, got you. And so how many people do you have set up with um sort of online billing with Stripe or something like this versus you do like check-based billing or Venmo or something like that?
Everything is done through the skimmer's billing, which I think is Stripe.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
so.
sure.
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Yeah, I have it all done. I only have a handful of people that will pay via check that they mail me, and then I got a handful that will pay cash.
Okay, cool. And then do you are they like automatically billed as like a subscription every month?
I would say only about 40% of the people are on automatic bill.
Okay. Okay, interesting, interesting. What if uh zooming back now, you sort of told me a bit of your story. What have been the biggest unlocks for you as you've been going through your full service business journey and this sort of thing?
What do you mean by unlocks?
Biggest things you like mindset shifts maybe, like different maybe coming in from being in business in the past, it was pretty straightforward. But were there any ways where you sort of changed how you looked at the business?
Uh, the biggest one for me is hiring a tech.
Yeah.
So because I think I got lucky with I had a part-time tech before I hired a full-time tech, but I was always really worried about hiring somebody because I didn't want them to go and mess up my pools, get used to having them cover, a section of my route, flake off, then I have to go back. I was always so worried that one, I wouldn't be able to afford it. Two, it would just be so much more work that it wouldn't be worth it. And so it came to be where another colleague of mine, he was starting to downsize a little bit, and he's like, "Hey, I got this really good gal. She needs a little bit more work. She does a great job. She needs about 10 or 15 pools a week just to kind of help sustain her while I downsize a little bit." And I was hesitant, but I was like, I'll make it work. I got it. This is like my dipping my toes in the water. And it worked out really good. She was amazing. She worked for me for a little over a year doing 12 to 15 pools a week. And one day she called up and she's like, "Hey, the guy, I'm moving on to something bigger and better." And just for what she wanted to do. And she's like, "I'm giving you like my month notice. Like I'm going to be done." And I started like, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do?" And I found this kid that has already had experience and wanted to. He reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, I need to be making like X amount a month," which correlated to about 60, 70 pools a month. And I was like, "Holy crap, I don't know how I'm going to do this." But I was like, I'm going to give it a shot because I'm like, I had probably like 2 or 3 months reserve of payroll to do it. And I'm like, that will give me enough time to really see if this will work. And what a blessing that has been. Yeah, so I think we originally started him with like 50, and then I got him up to 65, 70, and he's amazing. He shows up on time. It frees up so much more work for me to do. I'm less stressed. Instead of me doing 100 pools a week, I'm down to about 35, 40 pools a week, and I can do multiple drains, washes, installs, and I like doing service work, but if I love doing drains, washes, repairs, and installs even more. So it frees me up to do more of what I love and make more money. So that's been the best thing is hiring a good tech.
And how did he find you?
Uh, he found me by accident. He was super upset with his current pool company. I won't give out names. And he sent his resume over to ended up sending it to me. He found me. It just happened to be kind of by accident that he found me. And I pulled up his resume. It just popped up in my email one afternoon. I looked at it and I saw his experience. And I gave him a call because it was literally like a week after my current tech gave me notice that I got his email. I was like, that's kind of serendipitous. And did an interview, and everything went great. We worked out a deal, and yeah, so it was kind of cool.
All right, great, great. Well, to new people, consider hiring a tech, and even if you're a little worried about it. Um, Mitchell, thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
Yeah.
If people want to reach out to you or something, maybe they have a question for you, where can they find you?
On my either my website or my Google listing, my phone number, they can call me.
All right, cool, cool. Thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Parker.